Have you ever wondered if behind the romantic France seen on postcards, there is a massive machine running almost without pause? Here, bridges are not built simply to connect one side to another. They are built to carry people across boundaries that once seemed impossible to cross. They rise into powerful winds, hang over deep valleys, stretch across open water, and turn dangerous gaps into ordinary roads, used every single day. Every pillar, every cable, every suspended strip of pavement carries a meaning far greater than transportation. It is the ambition to shorten distance, connect regions, open paths for trade, tourism, work, and encounters that once felt far beyond reach. These structures do more than change how people move. They change how people understand distance itself. And from there, the journey opens into the rest of France's great modern projects, where the impossible continues to become part of everyday life. The Normandy Bridge, or Pont de Normandy, rises over the mouth of the Seine River, between Le Havre and Honfleur, where river traffic, sea winds, and Atlantic weather all meet. Opened in 1995, it was, at the time, the longest cable-stayed bridge in the world, with a central span of more than 2,800 feet. From a distance, the bridge looks almost delicate, but its scale is enormous. The two main pylons climb roughly 700 feet into the air, close to the height of a 60-story building, holding a web of 184 cables above the estuary. And because it stands near the open coast, engineers had to design it for powerful maritime winds, with studies showing it could resist extreme gusts far beyond normal storm conditions. The bridge changed that geography. It gave the Seine estuary a high, fast crossing, connecting industry, tourism, and coastal life in a single sweep of concrete, steel, and cable. The Millau Viaduct in southern France is not just a bridge across a valley. It is a road lifted into the sky. Stretching more than 1.5 miles over the Tarn Valley, it carries the A75 motorway across one of the most dramatic landscapes in France. At its highest point, the structure rises about 1,125 feet, taller than the Eiffel Tower, while the roadway itself floats nearly 900 feet above the valley floor. From below, cars look almost weightless, crossing the air between limestone plateaus as if the bridge were drawn across the clouds. Designed by French engineer Michel Virlogeau and British architect Norman Foster, Millau was built to be both powerful and strangely elegant. Its 7 slender piers and sweeping cable-stayed form make it look less like a heavy structure and more like a line of sails caught in the wind. That wind was one of the project's great challenges. High above the Tarn, the bridge had to be shaped, tested, and protected so traffic could remain stable in a place where weather can move fast through the valley. But Millau was not built only to impress. Before the viaduct opened in 2004, traffic heading toward southern France had to descend into the town of Millau, creating heavy summer congestion. The bridge lifted that traffic out of the valley, turning a bottleneck into one of the most beautiful highway crossings in the world. Charles de Gaulle Airport is more than the place where travelers land before entering Paris. Spread across more than 32 square kilometers northeast of the city, it feels like a separate world, built from runways, terminals, control towers, glass corridors, and constant movement. Four parallel runways handle the endless rhythm of arrivals and departures, including long strips of more than 4 kilometers, designed for heavy aircraft crossing oceans. In 2025, around 72 million passengers passed through this gateway. Some arrived for the first time, looking for France through signs, voices, luggage belts, and the first smell of airport coffee. Others were only changing planes, moving from one continent to another without ever touching the streets of Paris. What gives this place its meaning is scale and connection. It is the main hub of Air France, a meeting point between Europe and the wider world, and one of the clearest images of modern France. The old capital tells its story through cathedrals and boulevards. Here, the story is told through motion, aircraft lifting into the sky, people crossing borders, and a country opening itself to millions of journeys every year. Paris Metro. This is one of the most impressive subway systems in the world, and it is also an inseparable part of the identity of the French capital. It is not just an underground transportation system, but more like an invisible framework supporting Paris from beneath. Once you step into a station, you may be only a few minutes away from the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre Museum, Montmartre, or the Seine River. But the world below ground carries a completely different feeling from the Paris seen on postcards. The air feels heavier, the sounds are sharper, and the flow of movement almost never stops. Trains arrive, doors open, people step in and out, and within just a few seconds, the city continues its rhythm of life. It is this constant rhythm that makes the Paris Metro feel so full of life. It is fast, crowded, sometimes imperfect, but deeply authentic and deeply human. For travelers, this is a doorway into a more real Paris. Not only the city of beauty and romance, but also the city of work, study, art, tourism, and everyday movement. Beneath the ground, the Paris Metro reveals a Paris that is always breathing, always changing, and always moving forward. Aero Constellation, beside Toulouse-Blagnac Airport in southern France, is the aerospace complex built to assemble the Airbus A380, the largest passenger aircraft ever put into regular service. At its center is the Jean-Luc Lagardère Assembly Hall, a building so large it feels less like a factory and more like an indoor runway. The hall stretches about 1,600 feet long, 820 feet wide, and nearly 150 feet high, with a floor area roughly the size of 19 football fields. It was designed for one purpose: to bring the A380 together, piece by piece. Inside, wings, fuselage sections, engines, wiring, landing gear, and 2 full passenger decks came together around a jet with a 262-foot wingspan. Around it, cranes, platforms, engineers, and workers moved through a space built for a machine bigger than many airport terminals. The location was not accidental. The hall connects directly to Toulouse-Blagnac Airport through dedicated taxiways, so once an aircraft was assembled, it could roll out of the building and move toward testing and flight. The most impressive moment comes when the finished aircraft leaves the hall, rolls onto the taxiway, and starts moving toward the tests that will eventually put it in the sky. But A380 Constellation did not end with the A380. After A380 production stopped, the Jean-Luc Lagardère site was transformed for the A320neo family. Especially the high-demand A321neo. That evolution shows why Toulouse is often seen as Europe's aerospace capital. Around this airport, aircraft are assembled, tested, delivered, studied, and reinvented in one connected industrial ecosystem. Aero Constellation is one of the clearest symbols of a city where European aviation keeps taking shape. The Francois Mitterrand Library, part of the National Library of France, rises on the eastern edge of Paris as one of the most ambitious cultural projects of modern France. Announced by President Francois Mitterrand in 1988, it was designed to do something bigger than store books, to give the nation's memory a new home for the digital age. From above, the building is instantly recognizable. 4 glass towers, each about 260 feet tall, stand like open books at the corners of a vast wooden platform. They are named time, laws, numbers, and letters, turning the architecture itself into a map of knowledge. But the most cinematic surprise is not above the ground. At the center of the complex is a sunken forest of roughly 3 acres, larger than 2 football fields, sealed inside the library like a quiet island below the city. Around it, readers descend into 2 worlds, the Hôte de Jardin level for the general public, and the Res de Jardin level for researchers working deeper inside the collections. The scale is hard to grasp until you hear the numbers. The library holds almost 300 miles of shelving, longer than the drive from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. At first, the project was criticized for its size, cost, and radical design. Today, those same towers have become part of Paris's modern skyline, a place where books, glass, silence, and national ambition meet in one massive machine for memory. La Défense feels like the moment Paris changes its language. The stone facades, old bridges, and quiet balconies of the historic city give way to glass towers, steel frames, and wide-open plazas where the sky seems to break into 1,000 reflections. In the morning, the district wakes up fast. Trains arrive one after another. People move across the square with coffee cups, laptop bags, phone calls, and the focused pace of a workday already in motion. Above them, towers rise like vertical mirrors, catching clouds, sunlight, and passing shadows. By evening, the windows begin to glow, and the whole skyline looks less like a neighborhood than a machine still running after dark. This is the financial pulse of modern France. Behind these walls, banks, energy firms, insurance groups, and international companies make decisions that travel far beyond the city. There is very little nostalgia here. The mood is sharper, colder, more ambitious. Old Paris invites you to remember. This place asks what comes next. Versailles is where royal power in France became architecture. What began as a hunting lodge grew into a palace so vast that it feels less like a residence and more like a world built around one man's authority. Under Louis XIV, the court moved here, and the building became the political heart of the kingdom. Every room was designed to impress. Gold surfaces, painted ceilings, marble walls, chandeliers, and long ceremonial halls turned daily life into a performance of power. With more than 2,000 rooms, the palace could hold not only the royal family, but ministers, nobles, servants, guards, guests, and the machinery of an entire monarchy. Yet the beauty carries a quiet tension. The same grandeur that makes the palace unforgettable also hints at the distance between the crown and ordinary life outside its gates. Behind the mirrors and gilded details was a system built on privilege, ritual, and control. That is why this place feels so powerful today. It is not only a masterpiece of French art and design, it is also a reminder that splendor can become fragile, and that even the most dazzling palace can stand at the edge of history's turning point. The Channel Tunnel, also known as Eurotunnel, runs beneath the cold waters between France and England, one of Europe's most impossible machines, moving silently under the sea. It stretches about 31 miles from Folkestone to Coquelles, with more than 23 miles hidden below the English Channel. But this is not one tunnel. It is 3 parallel tunnels, 2 for trains, and a service tunnel in the middle, built like a lifeline beneath the seabed. More than 10,000 workers spent 7 years carving through chalk, stone, pressure, and darkness to connect 2 countries that had been separated by water for thousands of years. Today, that impossible idea feels almost ordinary. A car can roll onto Le Shuttle in England and emerge in France in about 35 minutes, as if the sea has simply been removed from the map. Every year, around 21 million passengers move through this underground corridor, along with trucks, freight, and high-speed trains tying London, Paris, and Brussels into one living network. And the tunnel is still evolving. Since 2022, it has also carried ElecLink, a 1,000-megawatt power cable between France and the United Kingdom, enough electricity to make this engineering wonder more than a transport route. It is now a hidden artery for energy, trade, and movement. What makes Eurotunnel unforgettable is not just its size. It is the contradiction. Above it, waves, storms, and ships cross the channel. Far below, trains race through silence, proving that one of Europe's oldest barriers could be turned into a doorway. The Paris-Lyon high-speed rail line, known as LGV Sud-Est, is the route that turned France into a high-speed nation. When it opened commercially in 1981, it did more than connect Paris and Lyon. It changed the way people understood distance. Before the TGV, the fastest train between the 2 cities took nearly 4 hours. After the full line was completed, the trip could be done in about 2. Suddenly, France's 2 most important urban engines felt less like separate worlds and more like morning to afternoon neighbors. The line runs through the heart of eastern France, carrying trains at up to 186 miles per hour, fast enough to make the countryside appear almost fluid through the window. But the real surprise was not just the speed, it was how quickly people embraced it. In its first 10 months, around 10 million passengers used the new high-speed service, proving that this was not a luxury experiment for a few business travelers. It was a new public machine, built for everyday movement. From that first Paris-Lyon corridor, the TGV network expanded outward toward the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, Northern Europe, Switzerland, Italy, and Spain. Compared with the older express trains and short domestic flights that once dominated the Paris-Lyon corridor, the TGV was not just faster. It made rail competitive with air travel, turned a 4-hour journey into a 2-hour routine, and gave France the model for an entire high-speed network. The Tours Bordeaux high-speed rail line, known as LGV Sud Europe Atlantique, is the project that pulled France's southwest closer to Paris. Opened in 2017, it added about 188 miles of new high-speed track between Tours and Bordeaux, turning what used to feel like a long cross-country trip into a fast Atlantic corridor. Today, The quickest Paris to Bordeaux trains can make the journey in about 2 hours and 4 minutes, almost an hour faster than before. On the open line, TGVs can run up to 199 miles per hour, slicing through fields, river valleys, and wine country with the quiet force of a machine built for distance. But the real scale is not only in the speed. Since July 2017, more than 170 million passengers have traveled on this rail corridor, proving that LGVC is not just a construction project made of tracks, bridges, and power lines. It has become a major mobility route for business travel, tourism, family trips, and daily movement across Western France. By moving more travelers from cars and short flights onto electric trains, Lycia estimates the line could reduce future emissions by more than 8 million US tons of CO2 equivalent by 2050. That makes LGVC part of a much bigger global question: how countries can expand fast transportation while cutting the carbon cost of travel. Bordeaux is not the end of the idea, either. The line is also a gateway toward Toulouse, the Basque Country, and future links deeper into southwestern Europe. The Rance tidal power station in Brittany, France, is where engineers turned an entire estuary into a power machine, using the Atlantic tide as its moving engine. Opened in 1966 on the Rance River, it became the world's first large-scale tidal power station and stayed the largest of its kind for 45 years. The principle is simple, but the image is huge. Twice a day, the ocean lifts and drops the water here by about 26 feet, nearly the height of a 3-story building. That rising and falling water is held by a long concrete barrage, then pushed through 24 hidden turbines as the tide moves in and out. Together, those machines give the plant a total capacity of 240 megawatts. From the air, Rance looks like a clean line drawn across the mouth of the river. Up close, it becomes stranger and more impressive. Cars drive across the top between Saint-Malo and Dinard, while underneath, seawater is being forced through turbines to make electricity. The project also changed currents, sediment, and parts of the local ecosystem, so Rance is not just a clean energy milestone. More than half a century later, it is still one of the clearest places to see what happens when humans build directly into the movement of the sea. Stade de France, just north of Paris in Saint-Denis, was built for a moment when France wanted the world watching. Opened for the 1998 FIFA World Cup, it became the country's national stadium, a venue large enough to hold more than 80,000 people, and powerful enough to turn a single match into a national memory. From above, its elliptical roof seems to hover over the bowl, giving the stadium a clean, futuristic shape that still feels modern decades later. But the real engineering is inside. About 25,000 lower-tier seats can be reconfigured, allowing the stadium to shift between football, rugby, athletics, and massive concerts. That flexibility is why Stade de France has become more than a sports venue. It has hosted the 1998 World Cup final, Rugby World Cups, UEFA Euro 2016, Champions League finals, the Paris 2024 Olympics and Paralympics, and some of the biggest music acts on earth. It is also the home stage for France's national football and rugby teams, where the blue jerseys, the anthem, and the crowd turn the stadium into something larger than architecture. On event nights, Saint-Denis changes rhythm. Trains fill, lights rise over the roof, and thousands of people move toward the same glowing arena. Stade de France is not only where France built a stadium, it is where the country built one of its most visible stages for victory, spectacle, and collective emotion. Paris RER Line A is the commuter rail line that keeps Greater Paris moving. Nearly 68 miles long, with 46 stations, it carries more than 1 million passengers on a busy workday, more daily riders than many entire transit networks around the world. From the western suburbs, it runs through La Défense, one of Europe's biggest business districts, then dives into central Paris through Charles de Gaulle, Étoile, Aubert, Châtelet, Les Halles, and Gare de Lyon, before pushing east toward the suburbs. At rush hour, platforms fill in waves. Doors open, crowds pour out, another crowd steps in, and the next train is already minutes behind it. The most intense point is Châtelet, Les Halles, one of the largest underground transit hubs in the world, where metro lines, RER lines, escalators, corridors, and thousands of passengers cross beneath the city. To handle that pressure, RER uses double-deck trains, turning each train into a two-level moving platform. This is not a monument Paris shows to tourists from the outside. It is a working machine people experience from within, in the sound of closing doors, packed cars, moving stairways, and the daily flow of commuters moving across the city. The Grand Louvre is more than a glass pyramid in the courtyard of a palace. It is the transformation that still shapes the way the world enters the Louvre today. In the early 1980s, the museum was magnificent, but crowded and difficult to navigate. President Francois Mitterrand's Grand Louvre plan transformed the Louvre from the inside out, returning major spaces to art and creating a new central entrance beneath Cour Napoléon. In 1989, IMP's Louvre Pyramid opened as the visible key to that transformation, rising about 71 feet and built from 673 panes of glass. It placed a sharp, modern form inside one of Paris's most historic courtyards. At first, Many people saw it as a shock. Over time, it became one of the most recognized images of modern Paris. But the pyramid is not just a symbol. It is a working piece of museum infrastructure. Visitors enter through the glass structure, descend into the Hall Napoleon, and are distributed toward the Louvre's different wings instead of crowding through older palace entrances. Its glass surface also brings daylight down into the underground lobby, so the new entrance feels open rather than buried. That is what makes the Grand Louvre so powerful. It did not erase the old palace. It gave the historic building a new circulation system, a new public heart, and a modern image strong enough to stand beside centuries of stone. The Great Arch of La Défense stands west of Paris as a 361-foot open cube at the far end of the city's historic axis. Look down that line, and the story begins at the Louvre, passes through the Tuileries, the Champs-Élysées, and the Arc de Triomphe, then ends in the glass and concrete skyline of La Défense. Built in 1989, the same year France marked 200 years since the French Revolution, the arch was designed as a modern gateway for a modern republic. Its scale is immediate. At about 361 feet high, it rises taller than the Statue of Liberty from base to torch. But the most surprising detail is not its height. The arch is turned about 6.3 degrees off the historic axis, because beneath its massive foundations were existing metro lines, RER tracks, and road infrastructure. Paris did not simply place a monument on empty land. It had to fit a giant cube over a working underground city. And unlike a traditional monument, the Great Arch is also a functioning building, with about 861,000 square feet of usable space and 35 floors. Offices, public spaces, elevators, and structural beams all operate inside what appears, from a distance, like one pure geometric gesture. That contrast is what makes it powerful on screen. Old Paris leading the eye forward, modern Paris rising at the edge, and one enormous open cube holding the line between history, engineering, and daily work.